Welcome to the G-Spot.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello everybody and welcome to Dynamic GT League's G-Spot, where I have Raymond with me. How are you, Raymond?
I'm doing very well.
Good.
Who's been naughty?
And who's been nice? Well, no one.
Who needs a stank? Who needs a... No, we won't go there.
No, we better not. Who's been in the Guinness Book of Records? Okay.
You apparently, I know.
Yeah.
I know what it was you were looking at. The woman with the biggest
knockers.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why you get me trouble.
I'm saying nothing. I plead the fifth. Sorry, I play with the fifth. Okay, so for anyone that doesn't know what the Dgt-G-Spot is, it's basically where we get to talk about weird things or explain things that happen in the Dynamic GT League races. We don't go through absolutely everything, but when we do have a look at something, we have a look at it in quite a bit of detail. So there's been loads of things that we've looked at before, people crashing into pit walls, incidents that have happened where someone perhaps has wanted more information on what a decision has been given, stuff like that. Now, we hinted last week's race video that on this G-Spot we're going to have a look at more detail of the radar, and we are, but that's going to be the third section of the G-Spot. The first two, we're going to have a look at a couple of instances that happened during the race at Suzuka, where I know us as commentators weren't sure of a certain situation. It was to do with potential unsafe returns to track, because there is a big difference between unsafe return to track and someone still crashing and somebody returning to track safely. There's many different factors, and at the time we didn't really get to see much of what happened. So that, I believe, is what we're going to be able to do, Ray.
Yep.
I nearly went do Ray. Yeah, hopefully. Also, what we've done with both of these that we're going to have a look at, I believe, we have gathered the thoughts of the two Steve's admins to get their comments on these. What we are going to try and do, if we can in future, is not necessarily get them involved with this because they're not available when we record this, but at least be able to give them the opportunity to offer their opinion. So a bit like when we did it a couple of weeks ago and we had no idea what their answers were going to be. I don't know if Ray knows what their comments were. I don't think they were sent privately to me, so anyway. But I suppose really what we should do...
I've got their comments.
Okay.
I think it's the first one.
I think they mentioned about both. But I think what we'll do, Ray, is we'll have a look at the first one. We'll talk about it a little bit. We'll have a look at the second one. We can talk about that a little bit. Once we've looked at the second one and we've talked about it a little bit, that's when we can then bring their comments in. Because otherwise we may end up talking about their comments about the second one when we haven't looked at it yet. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I was reading, so...
Oh, right, yeah. So, okay, right. Well, let's take a look at the first one, shall we? So, G1, Fluffy Feeling from race 7, which was Suzuka. So what have we got? So we're looking at Bunsell here, head of Demon R. Bunsell a little slow to turn one there, but mentioned that he was out of practice, so didn't know how quick he could go through there. And they're making their way through the snake, and we'll suddenly see, oh, Fluffy's there, and a bit of contact with Bunsell, and off Bunsell goes. So looking at it from Bunsell, I will mention that no one reported this, so it's not like there's going to be any penalties, but just for interest is why we're looking at it. So Bunsell heading into the snake, we can see that Fluffy's off. Fluffy returns to the track. Bunsell maybe tries to avoid him, looks like he tries to avoid him, and makes contact and ends up off the track. So let's look from Demon R's view. So there was what I was on about with Bunzel being a little bit slow, but that's where for Demon R he has to be prepared that Bunzel may not be fully aware of what's happening here. And I want to mention that at this point, this is where I noticed that Fluffy was off the track, and I did actually mention to Fluffy, watch out. So I was able to avoid it, Bunzel unfortunately wasn't. So if you look at Fluffy and what actually happened with Fluffy, so he's behind SRI, has a cheeky little look, SRI, a little bit of a touch, and off Fluffy goes. I think we did see that on the broadcast view. Fluffy ends up facing the wrong direction. When I pause it here though, from Fluffy's view at the screen, he can't see the cars coming, returns to track, but then gets connected by Bunzel. Now I can't remember if okay, from this view, what I want to mention here, Ray, is if we look, as Fluffy is trying to return to the track, look at what gear he's in. He's in third gear. So instead of the car going for him, it's not going anywhere. So couple of things with that for me.
Yeah, he doesn't shift it down until after the contact.
Yeah, and I mean, part of that might be from being sort of shouted at by me going, Fluffy, watch out, and him going, I can't see you. Well, one comment there would be use your radar, but having said that, on the radar, you're not going to see those cars coming.
He wouldn't have seen MD coming. Might have on the track map. But he wouldn't have seen anybody coming on the radar. No,
especially not from the side. And as I mentioned, I paused it at a moment where Fluffy's kind of facing the wrong direction, and on that view, you can't see any cars. I'm kind of a little bit on the fence of whether it's an unsafe return to track or not. I think had he been in second gear, his car would have been out the way, but he wasn't in second gear, and there was... Go on.
Kind of stunned him then was because he wasn't in second gear, and then somebody's shouting down at him, so he's not had that moment to think, what gear, man?
Yeah.
And then by that time, it's kind of too late.
Yeah, I mean, it's... I think as well, when it comes to unsafe return to tracks, on some occasions, I know I would factor in, okay, when the car is returned to track, if they return to the track staying as close to the edge as possible, or have they returned to the track and gone straight to the racing line, gone all the way to the other side of the track? Is there another, like, could they have gone a different direction? And I think with this one, I don't think Fluffy could have gone any other direction than the direction he did because of the way his car was facing. So I don't think he could have stayed any tighter as he returned to the track.
Plus, he was up a gear, so he's not going to have, when he's hitting the accelerator, he's not going to have that
momentum.
You know what? That extra turn you can have if you're in the right gear.
Yeah.
The corner. So he's in the wrong gear. So it's going to take a wider turn. So.
Yeah. So I must admit, it is a bit of a tricky one for me. I suppose in a way it would boil down to, did it result in contact with another car? Yes. Could that other car have avoided it? I don't think Bunzel could have done. It's a difficult one because if you're Bunzel, you don't. When a car's moving like that, you don't know what they're doing. So I know if I was approaching that corner on my own and I saw a car in the gravel, what I would want is for that car to stop and not move before they get back to the track. And I may even give them a little bit of a room.
But I think at the point that Fluffy returns to the track, I think Bunzel and Demon R were just coming out of turn 2.
Mm-hmm.
So Fluffy could have been like, I've got enough time to get back on the track here, and
potentially.
Potentially, Well, he did have enough time to get back on
on the
the track.
track.
He was just
Yeah.
in the middle of the track at
Yeah.
a very slow speed.
The thing is, I mean,
and I think-
we're not spoke to Fluffy about it, so I don't know whether like he sort of got on the track and as he heard, oh, watch out, Fluffy, he's tried to move off the racing line and go to the far side of the track, but the car's not allowed him to do it because of the gear, so he may have been trying to get out of the way. I don't know.
Let me go back to his onboard and see what his turning angle and see if that changes. Sorry, there's a wee pause in here when we're showing.
So while Ray's looking at that,
I don't know if it's a hit that causes it, but it does straighten up. I think it's a hit. I think he was just trying to get it turned around. So
it's difficult.
Yeah, it's a difficult one because if I was in Fluffy's position there, I'd feel I would have enough time to get back on the track and out of people's way. But
If you'd seen where they were.
yeah, but Fluffy's in the wrong gear. Plus, he's got somebody shouting
Watch out.
down, and so
Yeah.
that's kind of, it could have hindered them away. And I know we don't take coots or ifs or buts, but
I'll
that's a
take butts
very-
any day of the week.
But it's a very difficult one for me to say it was an unsafe return, and a very difficult one to say it wasn't an unsafe.
It's definitely.
It was or not.
I'd agree with that. I think what I would say though is that Fluffy's actions did result in Bunsell ending up off the track.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I didn't look to see if Fluffy waited for Bunsell or not. I should have done. I will admit that. In that situation, Fluffy should have waited for Bunsell. And if he hadn't and had Bunsell reported it, the definition of unsafe return to track would definitely have been a conversation between the stewards. But I think the result may have been a penalty because it did result in a car being off the track. Now, I paused it at a moment where I said that I saw when Fluffy was off the track and how far back I was. Now, I'm not saying that Bunsell should have seen Fluffy from that far away, because at the end of the day, Bunsell's got a car up his arse, no cars in front of him. His focus is going to be the piece of tarmac he's on and his mirrors. So I don't put any blame on Bunsell whatsoever for the contact or not avoiding Fluffy, because it's such a difficult situation to avoid contact in that kind of situation. But yeah, so difficult one, but possibly could have ended up in a penalty. Would you agree, Ray, or would you disagree with that?
If it was reported, I'd say there would be a penalty, whether it be unsafe return to track or causing a collision.
Yeah.
Would be a factor for the stewards to argue with the other two admins' views.
And it will be
Yeah.
struggle.
They're saying they feel it was an unsafe return. They have said more,
Yeah.
but I'm just bringing it down to
Yeah.
their words of
Well,
it
it will be interesting to get their full thoughts on it. But obviously,
Well,
we'll do that in a moment.
Okay.
Because otherwise, like I say, I know they talk straight through. So I think it's better to look at the both of them first. So if we actually go on to looking at the second one then. So G2, race 7, Conrod reeling. Okay, yes, so we're looking at Formula Gary. I think we did see this one on the footage. So Formula Gary coming through the S's, coming through Dunlop. And then all of a sudden, there's a car in the middle of the road. Gary just manages to avoid it. Demonar manages to avoid it. View from Gary then. So a bit later on in the S's, as we see. Now, Gary is unsighted and it's expected through Dunlop, absolutely flat out. Conrod, you see, just returning to the track. Gary manages to avoid it. So let's have a look at it from Demon R's view. So he sees Gary miss it. Demon R only just avoided it. So let's see what happened with Conrad then. I would guess he dips a wheel at the early part of Dunlop, because that's normally what happens. So just coming up now, dip a wheel there, yep, now dip a wheel, spin, and around she goes. Okay, so interestingly again, Conrad facing the wrong direction there, so can't turn any tighter, but he does get very close. So let's go on board with Conrad. So yeah, dips the wheel again. I mean, we see so many people have this kind of spin, but also I think it's key that again at the point of him facing the wrong direction, he can't see any cars coming.
I disagree with you. I seen Gary's name.
There's a number. Okay, there's a number 10 over there. I mean, it's.
No, you can't see the car. I'll go with that.
Okay.
Because you can can you turn off names above?
Only on a keyboard. So,
I'll go with we didn't see the car. Okay. We'll go with that.
He may or may not have seen the car. What I will say is, as he's returned to track, he is trying to take the tightest possible line that he can. He's in first gear, and he's not gone all the way across the road. He's not on the racing line. I think for me, ideally, should have waited. But I do think, again, it's one of those where I don't know if he'd have been able to see anyone coming. The only way he would have known would have been to look at the track map. But I think the same with Fluffy, though. If you do have a spin like that, I think you have to look at the track map before you attempt returning to the track. You need to have a look and see if anyone's coming. Go on.
I think with Connors, the cars were much closer.
Quite possibly.
I think there was more of a gap between the Fluffy and the Bunso compared to Connor and Gary.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't disagree with that. I will emphasise again that I think any time you end up having a crash and going off, the first thing you should do, or one of the first things you should be doing, is having a look at that track map and seeing, is it okay for me to return to the track? Because I'm thinking back, pretty sure we saw Jason do it at Brands Hatch, had a big spin and parked it, waited for 4 or 5 cars to come past. I think Artpal did the same, and it costs you time, it costs you places, but it results in no one shitting themselves and no one questioning about safe return to tracks. So yeah, I mean, this again though, this is a tricky one for me. I think had there been any contact with another car, unsafe return to track potentially could have still, the terminology may have been questioned, but I think had there been contact with another car, it would have been on Conrod, just like it was with Fluffy, because although he was recovering, I mean, he'd had the spin, he was facing the wrong way, he's trying to turn as tight as he can, he's in the correct gear, he's not just going flat out, he's trying to leave the space on the track, so he's kind of doing almost everything that he should be doing. But yeah, I think if there'd have been contact, I think it would have been on Conrad on that one.
Yeah, I agree.
Should we find out what the others thought then?
Yeah, okay, so we'll go with the F1. First one is unfortunate.
That's
SRI.
SGP, isn't it?
No, that's Steve F1.
Oh, right, okay.
Or Steve, what's it? What?
It's Steve F1.
Yeah. SRI just squeezed Fluffy off, clearly not intention. And I think SRI had technical issues at that point.
No, it says quit at that point.
Was an unsafe return to track from Fluffy going right across the track from one side to the other. Then with the second one with Connor, looks fine, he's trying to rejoin while staying right, however still risky in a blind corner. Any contact would be Connor's fault.
Yeah, blame the corner.
See, I don't get why... maybe because the Bunso contact that he said it was an unsafe
Potential.
return.
Yeah.
Was an unsafe return to track from
also,
Fluffy.
Yeah, I think with Steve F1 as well, though, he makes the point of it was an unsafe return to track from Fluffy going right across the track from one side to the other. So I think that's the key point for Steve F1, and that's obviously where we'd have the conversation about the terminology of is it unsafe return, is it not unsafe return? Because in that situation, Fluffy has gone from being in the gravel on one side of the track to making his way all the way to the far side of the track. Now, he may have been trying to get out of the way, but he's still gone all the way across the track. So that for Steve F1 would be a key point in his discussion of why it would be an unsafe return to track. I'd probably say it might not be an unsafe return to track, but it was a fucking slow return to track.
SGPs was both drivers should have looked at the mini-map at the top right corner to see if the track would be safe to return to. Having seen cars on the map, they both should have waited for a safe time to rejoin the track. They both were fully in control of their cars at point of return, so any incidents would have been their fault, though Fluffy at fault for Bunso going off. Connor, for me, would be given a heads up on the fact that if anyone had been involved in an incident regarding his return to track, it would be his fault. He only just left Demon Art enough room.
Yeah. Which I think sort of their comments kind of are very similar to ours as well, aren't they? Where, I think they're both quite similar to our thoughts. But there are subtle differences between the two as well. So like with, as I mentioned with Steve F1 mentioned about Fluffy going all the way across the track, and Conrod, you could clearly see he was trying to not go across the track. He was trying to take the tightest line he could and leave space. But I think also the emphasis from both of the drivers, and definitely from SGP there, is that both of them should have looked at the minimap. Because having looked at the minimap, they then would have been able to go, okay, yeah, I've got to wait here, and carry on. So again, these videos that we're done, it's not to pick on those drivers. It's one of those sort of teachable moments where
it's an educational. How many times have we done unsafe return to track? Not many.
No, exactly.
I can't remember the last one. Right enough, I can't remember last week.
Well, yeah. I can't remember having my penis in the Guinness Book of Records, but there we go.
Librarian can.
Yeah, she gets scarred on her. Anyway.
She's like, I come back when you've reached puberty, mate.
Yeah. Oh dear, no comment. Well, I didn't say it was for the biggest. Okay, but yeah, so there we go. Also to tracks covered on that one. Quick question for you, Ray. Why didn't the toilet paper cross the street? Because it got stuck in a crack.
Okay.
You'll use that one tomorrow. Okay, so as advertised, we are going now to... I just dropped a pen, picked it up again, and dropped it again straight away. Give me a sec.
We're going to the next one, or you finding your pen?
I'll still look for it now. We're on to we'll have a look at the next one. So as advertised, yeah, we're going to go in depth with the radar. So, G-wiz. Radar. Okay, so we mentioned we'd have a look at different vehicles. So here we are in the Toyota Tundra nose to tail, as close as we can get. And yeah, let's have a look at the rate. What the hell is this? There's a ray! There's a ray! I found a ray! So let's have a look at the radar. And as you'll see, even though these vehicles are nose to tail, there is a massive gap.
Use
Clearly,
I knew. By the
oh,
way.
we're having a look at another radar. There's a ray. There's a ray. Oh, look at him doing some. I was going. What are you doing to that vacuum cleaner, Raymond?
I'm a wee bit behind, so you're gonna.
Well, this video is going to keep going. So now we're having a look at the Super Formula. They're nose to tail, and yeah, let's have. Oh, look, we got another radar. Go. Oh, hang on a minute. That's not Ray. That's not a Ray. That's not a Ray. Okay, so back to the Super Formulas. And if we look at the radar, these vehicles are nose to tail. Oh, hang on a minute. What's this? Oh, there's a ray. There's a ray. I found another one. And I think this one looks very pretty.
I'm gonna kill her.
She did say he's going to kill me. I said, don't blame. I said, I will take all the blame for it.
That's unfair. You're not showing the picture of why I've got.
No, that is true. Well, you can explain it once we finish talking about the rain. Because I want to mention this lot.
User.
I know, we're knobheads. There's something that the admins are going to have a look at, though, Ray, because you're going to spot it in a second. Steve F1's rear view doesn't see Demon R right behind him. Ooh.
Yeah, I'm just gonna have to. I'm catching up. So.
Don't take it out on Kirsty. It's all my fault. But yeah, so I know I've kind of sort of thrashed over that a little bit. But what I will say, the footage is there. And you can rewind it to look at the images. This is what I'm mentioning for the viewers at the moment. But so looking at the Super Formula, these cars are nose to tail here. But on the radar, it was clearly showing that there's a gap. Now, these cars cannot get any closer together than what they physically are at the moment. So, with these cars, if you look at the radar and your arrow is just ahead of the other person's arrow, if you move across, chances are you're actually going to be hitting them. Yeah. How's your Friday going, Ray?
That's why she was waiting to sleep fucking early.
Well, like I say, don't blame Kirsty. She did say, "Oh no, he'll kill me."
That's what you were doing, and like
the other day,
that's it. Because what
are you up to?
What's Dave's message? She goes, "Oh, I can't remember what she said."
So, he was wanting to get hold of you, and then you messaged me saying,
Kirsty
says you want to get hold of me. What's wrong?
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh well, just wondering whether we should let the other admins have a look at the G-Spot things before." Yeah.
And then it clicked on that you actually never messaged me. You'd messaged Kirsty before. I'm like, nah, something's up here.
Yeah.
Something's up here. And Kirsty says, I said to Kirsty, like, swear my life, and like when I say that, she'll swear on my life. If it's true, but if it's a lie, she won't. So she couldn't swear on my life.
Oh, well, at least
she
didn't. She didn't lie then. She didn't break the unbreakable bond. I'm proud of you, Kirsty.
So I was like, so what's going on? And she wouldn't say. I goes, you're up to something. What's going on? And then after a while, she's like, you want to see the messages? You can see them.
And that's when
But-
you went, no, it's all right.
Tell them it's not my fault. I was like, no, whatever it is, then I'll just leave it and see what comes
What
of it.
happens? Yep.
You
Bastards.
bastard. now, why do I have mascara on and that?
Because you
the
like to be
na-
pretty. So no,
No,
go on.
the neighbours through leaving do for us because we're moving house, and there was a lot of kids there, so I thought, let's make it a wee bit fun for the kids, and I dressed up as Jack Sparrow for the day, and that was at night time when I get sick of the costume and the hair wig in my face all the time, and I forgot to wash the makeup off my face. So there was other people joining, looking at me. I was like, it's all right, mate. It's guy liner. Or is it guy liner or gay liner? I can't remember.
It's eyeliner. Well, gay liner. No. Yeah. Oh,
So, but yeah, so that's the reason for that makeup picture.
Okay. Okay. I suppose. Right,
A body
obviously,
killer.
yeah, we've had a bit of a laugh and a joke about that. I've been looking forward to that all week. Actually, 2 weeks. But when I came up with the idea for that, I was like, "Oh, this is going to be so good! I hope you're in a good mood." Yeah. Sorry, Kirsty. Right. Okay. So, I may or may not re-show the video clips on the actual video we're doing. But what I will say is, it is clear as day. I may just put some stills. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. It depends on how much time I've got. It was clear as day in the Toyota Tundra, the pickup truck, that the cars were nose to tail, but on the radar there was a massive gap between the arrows. So if you went off the arrows for trying to tuck in behind someone or pull in front of someone, you'd be hitting them. Now, I would hope you'd be able to see that you're not behind them, but it does emphasise the fact of what we were pointing out last week. And with the Super Formula, I mean, that one is... it is so close. Well, is it close? It's not. I mean... I'm getting onto a clip of the Super Formula now, and yeah, there is quite a gap between the arrows, isn't there?
Yeah, and the same with the. Well, no, it's if the cars we're racing in now.
Yeah,
There is.
1500.
Yeah, there is a very little bit of a gap, and that's maybe what's catching people out. But when you go to Super Formula, I think there's a wee bit more of a gap.
Yeah, there is
That's
definitely.
going to catch people out.
Yeah.
more.
Oh yeah, 100%. And that is why that we have looked into that. I will try and put images on the screen so people can see this.
Did we not kind of figure it out? It's where the driver's sitting in the car is what the triangle is. It's not the actual car. I can't remember, because you sit more forward on what do you call it, the
1500.
the truck,
Mm,
but you've got a big long boot,
yeah.
and then the person, so it's the boot space between the back and that, and then if 1500, you're kind of near enough 50-50, just a wee bit of an offset, and so the arrow's nearly good, but just that little overhang. But the Super Formula, you've got a longer nose, haven't you? So
I wonder if it's... I was going to say maybe it's the wheels, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, either way, there's definitely a big difference between the gaps. I mean, I'm surprised actually at how big the gaps are with the Super Formula. But this is the reason why that we're bringing this to everybody's attention, because otherwise people will be pulling in front of each other, trying to tuck in behind each other and making contact. It's also why when we've done the odd racing go-karts and you try like sweeping into someone and hitting them, or even some other cars actually, you go for the wipeout and miss. And you're like, huh? But it's because the car might be shorter than the arrow.
Yeah, and a tip for people to review you use, see you in practice, just maybe ask somebody to stop in front of you on track and you drive up to the back of them. Just get like something, a
reference
a reference point and like a whiteboard marker or something and put it across your screen. And that way you can see roughly when somebody's really you're close to somebody's rear end or somebody's close to the back of you when you look backwards.
Well, this is why
something to help. That's a wee tip.
Yeah, well, this is why on the clips that I showed, and I mentioned that there was something that the admins will need to look into, is because I was on board with Steve F1's car and I looked in the rear, like pressed the button to look behind, and Demon R's car disappeared. Now, I don't know if that's just a replay thing or what, I don't know, but I think we need to have a look into it. Because if we're in a situation where, say, one car's bump drafting another and the car ahead looks behind, sees no car there, they're going to be wondering what the hell is going on.
Did you not ghost at one point as well?
No, we didn't record that bit because the lobby settings when we tested this were wrong, so the lobby settings were changed. So I did actually, if you re-watch the clip, you will see that I did show Steve F1's car moving away and Demon R's car appeared and then closes the gap again and disappeared. So it is something that we'll need to have a look at. But with your point again of like, depending on which view you use, there's no harm in asking someone to just come and park right up to the back of you, making contact with you, so that you can get a reference of, okay, when someone's touching me, how close do they look in my mirrors, if you know what I mean. There's no hardship in that. It's not a bad idea. But
you can put a whiteboard marker point somewhere. Like sometimes when I'm doing my RP stuff, we don't have a crosshair. So I'll zoom in and put a point on my screen of where I'm going to shoot.
Fair enough. So there's loads of different tricks you can use, but I think the key point of this is that, yes, the radar is a very effective tool. Yes, we want people to use the radar, but we want people to have as much information about the radar as possible. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, if some people don't even realise that with the radar, that it's actually got the track on it. If this is where you go, what? I'll be amazed.
You've got a track?
Yeah.
Like
the time.
Where you're going round?
Yeah.
It's got the track.
Yeah, it's like a light
grey.
But some people may not have...
Well, it's a wee bit darker than the outside, isn't it?
Yeah. So, I mean, but it's one of those things, if you don't know, you don't know. But there you go. But this is where I know for us, I mean, we've said a few times, and SGP said it a lot of times, you really wish that the radar, the triangles on the radar were not triangles, that they were squares, but also that they were relevant to the size of the car. Now,
the car's collision box at least.
Yeah. And that's something I suppose we should talk. I mean, I know about it, you know about it, that as we showed with the Super Formula here, when we looked from the side, you could see there's a little bit of a gap between the cars, or looks like there's a gap between the cars, but actually there isn't. And that is because there is a box that is around the car that is its signature on the track. So that box cannot overlap another box. So as Ray called it, it's its collision box. That sounds like a really bad name for a porno, but yeah. So, anything else we want to mention about the radar?
No, just a couple of tips there, and like we said, drivers, the games aren't always perfect, and we try and work in, we try and debunk as much as we can, and we're seeing this from the radar. I know it's a wee bit late, but yeah.
Well, I mean, it is. I mean, when you consider, the amount of championships we've done, but to be fair, didn't realise just how different it was going to be, and having seen it, I mean, I don't know whether we just got lucky so far, but yeah. So what we'll need to do is keep an eye on it.
Plus, when we were in the other trucks, the Raptors, we weren't looking at the radar, we were just smashing people up.
Exactly. And that's the thing, I mean, in the trucks it is so clear, the radar gaps. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what it's like on GT7, but obviously we're not going to go into that because we don't need to at the moment. So, yeah. Right, if that's us done with that, I think that's us done with that, and that's us done with episode 7 of the G-Spot. So
I'm just going to go and speak to my lawyer and
murder the wife.
Make sure I get the house first, eh?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, move in first. Yeah.
Stay in the flat, and she can have the flat, and I get the house.
You'll have room for your rig then.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to finally mention that the other day I spotted an albino Dalmatian. It was the least I could do for it.
You spotted the albino Dalmatian, it's the least you could do for him.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get it.
You will, eventually.
The leash I could do, or least?
No, the least. I spotted an albino Dalmatian the other day.
How can you oh, you fucker.
It was the least I could do for him. And on that bombshell, thank you for listening. Have a good one, everybody. And good night, Ray. We'll see you all again soon.
Yep. Bye.